Let's talk about the labors of Hercules Beal and how to discuss this book with your kids. Hi, I'm Mary Wilson. I teach online book clubs for kids ages 8 to 10, 11 to 13, and currently I also teach a teen book club ages 13 to 15. This book was the November title for my middle school group, the 11 to 13-year-olds, and I did warn them that this was the one book I picked this year that did have some sadness in it. The accident that happens to the main character, Hercules Beal's parents, happens before the book. So the book is more focusing on his grief and his processing, this new life that he now has with his older brother, basically raising him. It blends hope and humor with a very realistic look at grief as well. And it was such a great book to discuss. All right. So one of the things that I talk about in my book clubs, if a book has won the Newbery Award or a Newbery Honor, it's a great chance to talk to your kids about what the Newbery Award is, that it's given to one book in children's literature each year that has made a significant contribution to children's literature that year. And then there's usually a few that get the Newbery Honor. They didn't get the award, but they are an honor book, and this was an honor book. So one thing I will ask the kids is, why do you think this book was given the Newbery Honor? What important, significant contribution do you think it made to children's literature? And in general, the kids for this one agreed that dealing with grief in such a realistic way, that there aren't a lot of kids' books, that's not the large percentage that do that, and this one did it really creatively. Hercules Beal is assigned by his teacher. He has to read the 12 Labors of Hercules, the mythology, and then try to complete those labors in his own life. And then he has to write about the experience. It's a really tricky thing. He's trying to figure it out. It is tons of fun. There's a lot of creativity. Of course, if you want to read about the mythological labors ahead of time, that would be a great connection to this book, but you don't have to. I didn't do that. Most of the students didn't do that. But I am going to give you a little tip in case you are discussing this with kids, because one of the things you're going to discuss is you're going to discuss the labors. And it's hard for kids to remember. And my copy of this book, at least, didn't have a table of contents with all the labors listed. So I'm teaching online, so I made these labors my background. If I was doing this at home or in a classroom, I'd probably type them up and print them out. And then what I did here in the parentheses is I put just a little reminder of how that labor showed up in Hercules Beal's life. So this is the name of the official labor of Hercules in mythology. And in parentheses, I included what Hercules did in his actual life to reflect that labor. So I'm just throwing that out as a suggestion. It was really helpful in book club because you forget. It's been a while, and without a table of contents to go through them, I thought that was going to be really hard. So one of the things I asked the kids is, which labor was your favorite? Why did it stand out to you? We just had a good time discussing some of the experiences. And then we went through and picked some of the favorite labors, whichever ones kind of came up in the class, and talked about what did Hercules learn during this activity that taught him about himself, about the world around him. And what's great about that is it kind of leads into a discussion of theme. Then once we've decided, okay, this is something he learned, did we see him learn that with any of the other labors or from any of the other people or in any other way in this book? And there are quite a few that he learns lessons like giving people second chances or not judging a book by its cover was, something, a way the kids kind of put it. And then we saw it through characters that he interacted with, as well as more than one labor that he completed. So that was kind of a fun way to talk about theme. When we're seeing this lesson over and over, we can talk about the author's theme as a lesson for us also in our own lives. So that was really fun. Another thing that happens in this book, and it's actually on the cover, is Hercules Beal has a routine. He goes out to the dune every morning and he watches the sun come up. He says, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad." And this is kind of like a special ritual for him. He doesn't think his brother even knows he does it. He starts by doing it very much alone. and we watch it change through the book. So I talked to the kids about what does that show us? How does the author use this daily morning routine to show us an internal change in Hercules? He starts to bring his new pets with him. He invites his brother at some point. He invites his brother's girlfriend. His best friend comes at some point. We see an internal change happening through this external routine. And then, of course, near the end of the book, the author takes the dune away. This dune is swept away in a storm. And so I asked the kids, why would the author do that? Why would he now take away the dune that was part of this ritual? And they had such interesting thoughts about that. And we talked about the dune almost as a symbol of security for Hercules Beal, like a security blanket. And he really needed it at first. And then as we see that internal change happening, we get to a point where he no longer needs that security. So that dune becomes kind of a symbol of that security that he needed earlier on when he was feeling like life was so out of control. And then one other suggestion, and honestly, I could give you so many suggestions. When you read this book, you'll have so many things you want to talk about. But Hercules' teacher who gives him this assignment, Mr. Hupfer, he is an interesting character. So he has a military background, so he has kind of this strict edge to him. And so we talked about, was he a good teacher? What made him a good teacher? What maybe made him not a great teacher? Was he a better mentor than he was teacher? There were all sorts of opinions. Some kids thought he was a great teacher because Hercules learned so much, and sometimes you just gotta say what someone needs to do. Other people thought he was mean. He wasn't a great teacher, but that they did see some of the change with him. It was a great discussion. This is a great book for middle school. Be warned, yes, I did cry near the end as he really starts to process some of his grief. But in general, I would say most of the kids enjoyed this one. Thanks again. If you want to know more about my book clubs, you can check out the links below and follow along for more book discussion ideas.